So, good afternoon again, and welcome to the general meeting of ICMIF 2017. I think I will have some slides there with the agenda. If everything is going well, you will find the agenda on your tables. So I'm now seek for a motion to approve that agenda. Someone putting that motion forward. Please, thank you, Chris. Seconded by, thank you, John. So can we approve the agenda? Everybody in favor says agenda. Get a little bit awake here. Yeah, okay, thank you. Nobody against, no abstentions, so we can move on. The only formal approval I need from you is the approval of the resolutions of the Minneapolis conference 2 years ago. You will find those on your table as well. I don't know if you had time to review them. It's of course 2 years ago. I know this is very formal, but we need to go through that process. So, can I have a motion to approve those resolutions as well? Yes, Brad, thank you. Seconded by Merci Jean-Louis. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Everybody in favor. Thank you very much. And then I move on to something that's probably more interesting today is the report of the CEO of ICMIF, Sean Tarbock, on the activities 2015-2017. And you found also a report in your bags. So please, Sean, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Hilda. I'll try and make it interesting then. I had the report as well, just in case, but everything I'm going to show you is actually in there, just in a little bit more detail. But I wanted to go through some of the slides. I'm okay with this, yeah? Just to give you a high-level view, since the 2 years ago when we last met as a general meeting in Minneapolis. So what you've got there is you can see we are now 280 members in 75 countries, growing nicely. Many of those members are among the Global 500. And we've got a lot of diversity around the world, and you can see from that. Every time the executive committee gets together, which is every 6 months, and every time the board gets together every year, I report back on our strategic update. And we have 6 key performance indices in the current strategy. The current strategy runs from 2015 to 2018, so we have just over a year left, although 2 years in the numbers you're seeing here. We said we wanted to represent 8% of the world's insurance market. We're at 7%, but that's up from 6.4 in 2015, so it's moving in the right direction. We hopefully will get a much higher up there when the currency rates move slightly more in our favor because they've moved against us the last year. We said we wanted 300 members. We've got 280, which is an increase of 54. Many of those coming through the work we've done with our European Regional Association, Amici. We also wanted to get more members in the Global 500, and we've got 108 of those, which is up from 80 in 2015. So that's all good numbers, all moving in the right direction. And then we move on to the target of being a global leader, recognized as a global leader in business intelligence and research for the sector. We've put a lot of research reports out there, and I'll talk a bit more about those in a minute. So 19 different reports in the last 2 years. We've had lots of articles written as thought leadership articles for Insurance Day and other newsletters, both by staff and by ICMIF members. We've had over 33 of you engaged in the new area of influencing. And I think the standout figure we've got here is when we measured the global reputation of the sector in 2013, we were actually only 9% of the share of voice. And we set a target then of doubling it. And we've doubled it already by 2015. So in 3 years, we actually managed to double our share of voice. I think that's quite phenomenal. And that's everyone in the audience. When it comes to our networking, we pride ourselves by the quality of the networks that we put on, the quality of the meetings, and the amount of people that keep returning to us. So we do measure the satisfaction there, and the satisfaction target was 4 out of 5, and we're achieving an average of 4.3. So all of those strategic numbers are looking reasonably good. There's still some we need to get to by 2018, but we're not far away, and they were quite big stretch targets, I believe, when we set them. We have a board that meets twice a year, 22 members. There are 4 committees that report directly into those: the Executive Committee, Development Committee, Intelligence Committee, and Reinsurance Committee. And there's your 22 board members, the current ones. They've met twice since the last meeting, last year in Nairobi and this morning. And we have ex officio members of that from the committees and from the regional associations as well. But networking is an absolutely crucial part of what we're trying to deliver, bringing you together, getting the energy in the room, making the sparks fly, giving you new ideas, new strategies. That's what we're about. So it's important that we measure how many events we get. We don't want to do too many, we just want to do the right events. So we did 34 in 17 different countries in the last 2 years. 1,432 people have been to one of our events in that period. That's up about 20% over the previous 2 years. And many of you attend more than one event, so 40% have been attending more than one event. So they're all good numbers and all go in the right direction at a time when it is difficult for associations to engage as much as they do because people are so busy in what they're doing. But the networking, we split in between certain areas. So this one we call the conferences, such as this. We've had some wonderful conferences in the Latin American and the Americas region, in Mexico City and in Lima in Peru. We obviously had the Minneapolis conference, which was absolutely outstanding. Our Morrow conference for reinsurance in London. The Latin American conference happens every year. And the AOA seminar in Tokyo. And what one I would draw on from this is that every one of those events is getting more and more people. The big step up on those ones there was the AOA seminar in Tokyo. Had 200 people at it. That's absolutely broke any records the AOA had done before. So there is clearly a drive and a need for people to network together. And then we've got the member-to-member visits, and these happening all of the time. And I think you'll hear a little bit more in the panel coming up. But we've had, annually we have a visit of about 17 members going to Japan to talk business and reinsurance business. We have organizations coming to us wanting to understand what the key strategies are that they want to put in place. And then we have study visits that go into organizations and look at what's going on and get into the real detail of how they run their business and why it's successful. So there's been a lot of these strategic meetings going on around the world. And then we do our Leadership Plus and our seminars and our training. And these are world-leading events, I believe. We've got the multi-forum event that we put on for basically looking at the communications, the regulations, and the leadership development event in York. We had over 60 people at that. And that's where the millennials really started to progress with their agenda, which ultimately has led to 55 of you being here. We have our advanced management courses, which we now run twice a year, once in Manchester and once in Singapore. And thank you to NTUC Income for hosting us over there. This was a big step up for us to move that particular world-renowned training event to a totally different region. And I think just looking at who's registered for it in November, it appears as if it's really popular for Europeans and North Americans to go and see what's going on in Singapore and Asia. So we've got lots of people registered to go to that. We developed the High Potential course, which we've run a few times as well this last 2 years. The Regulatory Leaders Forum is now a regular event in the Latin American calendar, alongside the ASAL event. And we've done our first joint regulatory forum with Amici earlier this year in Brussels. So there's lots and lots of events going on, lots of opportunities to get people together. And some of the numbers you see there, again, are good numbers. The events that are going, you see where the people are coming from. So there's a lot going on in the Americas, clearly. 666 people coming to the events that are hosted over there, 430 in Europe, and so on. And then we also look at who's involved in the governance. And that's nearly 250 people throughout the 2 years have given up their time to partake in either the board or one of the committees. That's a commitment that we really appreciate, because without being close to the members, we can't really understand what it is are your needs. The conference is clearly growing. You heard we've now 363 at this event. That is an outstanding achievement. I think we've only once been over 300, and that was in Brussels. So that was, we're going in the right direction. And you can see there how popular the event attendance is by the C-suite people that we've got. We also measure the different levels of people coming to things, because not everything is done in order for our CEOs, but many of them are. But it's also important that we get to all levels within the organization in terms of finding a strategic fit and for you to get together. The networking side is absolutely crucial, as I said earlier, and I think it's finding its, in terms of the numbers, when I look at our mutual market share, which we put out every year, we can see that the mutual sector continues to outperform the rest of the market. So that's not just the shareholder market, but that's also the mutual market. So this sharing that you do between yourselves, whether it be at an ICMIF conference or whether it just be on a bilateral basis, it's clearly working, because the strategies you're sharing are the ones that are coming through. But the new thing we did from 2 years ago was we started down this track of the influence. And 2015, as you've heard me speak before, was a big year for the planet. It was a big year for insurance generally. It's the year that insurance really stepped up in terms of being the risk managers of the world. We had the big global events around the UN ISDR seminar in Sendai, which set a 15-year target for disaster risk and resilience. We had the Sustainable Development Goals in New York, which were decided on for another 15 years to 2030. And then we had the Climate Change Summit, the COP21 in Paris, which again set another 15-year target broken down by 5-year tranches. And we were participating in all of those with our new friends within the insurance industry. And I think Mike Morrissey's in the audience here somewhere. Who's the president of the International Insurance Society. And he and I and Rowan Douglas have been tramping around these global events where there were very few industry people at these events. It was nearly all civil society people. And they were pleased to see us in one way, but also thinking, well, why were we there? Well, we were there really to try and promote insurance as a solution for some of the world's biggest problems. And I'm pleased to say they were listening. It came to a head when Ban Ki-moon, the then Secretary General of the United Nations, gave us a couple of weeks to get together some leaders from the industry to meet his leaders from the World Bank and the UN. And you see the picture there. We had Kathy Bardswick and Ann Summer rallied to the call. The other lady there is Inga Beale, who you'll see on the panel tomorrow, who's the CEO of Lloyd's. We all got together for about a 3-hour session with Ban Ki-moon and his leaders, and that was the formation of the Insurance Development Forum. And that has gone from strength to strength, and you heard Justin earlier talk about this is a new organization that really can change the way we think, the way people think about insurance, and the way we can actually expand insurance to many markets that previously weren't there, and closing the protection gap. It's only 18 months old. We've only just started. And yes, maybe we're late to the table, but at least we've made a start. And this has been part of our strategy. ICMIF and IIS and now the Geneva Association, the three global associations, have come together as an industry. We have two of our board members, Jean-Louis Davet here and Rob Wesling, who are on the board of the IDF. Yes, we are finding our way, but we are certainly doing some very innovative and different things. Myself, I'm the co-chair of the Microinsurance Working Group, which met yesterday for the first time face-to-face here. We had 50 people in the room. We have half of those from the industry and half from civil society. And really, the energy and the passion to want to change things in the room was just fantastic. So we've now got the UK government, the German government, the UNDP, the UNISDR, the World Bank, all wanting to work with our microinsurance working group. And sitting behind that is the success stories we have behind the 555, which is, you've heard many times before, which is our mutual insurance endeavor into helping the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think this is a very exciting area. As I said earlier, a number of you are engaged in this. We would encourage you to get more engaged. It is really rewarding when we're going around really almost being seen as the helpers, or not, I wouldn't say the saviors, because I think we've got a long way to go for that, but we are certainly seen in a very positive light by the civil society people I've got to know over the last 3 or 4 years. We've been very involved in the B20, along with 6 or 7 of our other members, and we've worked very closely with Monique Leroux and the ICA team in attending all of the meetings in the last 3 or 4 years. And we've had some notable successes there. We've managed to get onto some working groups. Monique herself is actually co-chairing one of those working groups now. So this is from 4 years ago in Australia, where they didn't even know or couldn't even spell the word cooperative. And now we're actually sitting down the table, we're getting mentions in the final reports that are going to the heads of state of the G20 countries. It's quite a phenomenal change. And we've just finished the German presidency, and we're moving into Argentina. And I know we're very well represented by our Argentinian members, and they're very excited about what they can bring to the table there. So this is more about just getting awareness. But we did also manage to get the 555 strategy into the Turkish presidency paper, which is quite phenomenal to get something like that in when everyone is trying to get their voice heard in this particular platform. Other influencing highlights I'd like to touch on. You may have seen just last month the application paper for the regulation and supervision of mutuals, cooperatives, and community-based organizations. It's much easier to say MCCOs. And that's actually about increasing access, or it started as increasing access to insurance markets. But now the IAIS apply it to all mutual and cooperative insurers in the world. So this is something we've been involved in since 2010. My colleague Sabir Patel was on the drafting committee originally and is the only non-regulator on that particular drafting committee. And I think we've come up with a reasonably good document. Certainly from an optics point of view, we actually now have our own regulatory code there, which I think is fantastic. That certainly wasn't always going to be that way, but you'll hear more about that tomorrow from Yoshi Kwai. We've got 2 of our members are featured in the report on insurance regulation for sustainable development, and a report written by Ana Gonzalez-Pelez, who again you'll hear from tomorrow, who works for the Cambridge Institute of Sustainable Leadership that Justin mentioned. She's now about to write a second paper because she enjoyed talking with our microinsurance members so much. She wants to try and measure the impact, which is sort of the holy grail of microinsurance. So we have someone like Cambridge University sitting behind us on that. We've also issued a practical guide for regulators to understand what it is to regulate a mutual and cooperative insurer. It is a comprehensive guide. I believe it's been translated into about 5 or 6 different languages now. The introduction was written by Karl van Hooler, who was the father of Solvency II. So he appreciated it, he read it through, he gave it his seal of approval. And it's a document, an honest document that helps regulators understand that our model is slightly different. And then we've been really helped by MGN and Jean-Louis Davet in getting mutual insurance into China. And I think this is one of the big success stories, which to get it into what is now the 3rd largest insurance market in the world is not an easy task to do. And Jean-Louis has been going there for at least 6 or 7 years now, knocking on the doors, playing the politics, making sure the mutual law that they've approved last year is actually an appropriate law. And there's still work to be done on that. But we're starting to see some really good returns on our time and human resource investment there in terms of if we can get mutuals into the Chinese market, then that is a real feather in our cap. And that's one of the reasons we have a delegation here from Brazil. I don't believe they're here just yet, but they will be here tomorrow. And they're studying why they should have a mutual insurance law in Brazil. And I think that's a snowball effect as we're going to start to see more and more organizations doing this. Countries. In terms of the knowledge side, I think it's very important to make sure that we communicate to all of the members in all of the appropriate languages. So most things here are in 4 languages, about what is going on, about where the hotspots are, about what is actually happening, where the strategies are changing, where they're really working, where they're making an impact. And all the reports that we put out are trying to focus on getting that message to you, the members, about what the current things are. A lot of them do come from our intelligence committee, and Bill McKinney and his team there do a fantastic job meeting twice a year, making sure that we're keeping ahead of the game and the thought leadership is there. But you'll see a lot of reports there that I do encourage you to read. The latest one, which you'll see in your pack, is the CEO Insights, which Hilda's going to touch on in a minute. This isn't something we just magic up. This is something we work very hard to make sure it's insightful and useful for you so that it'll help you run your businesses. So there's our sort of a quick wraparound of what's in the reports itself. Remember, it's the networking, it's the knowledge, and it's the influence. And if I just leave you with the thought from the influence side from yesterday's meeting, the lady who I co-chair the microinsurance working group is a lady called Joan Lamb-Tennant. And she's the CEO of Blue Marble, and she's a wonderful lady. She managed to chair everything yesterday while I had to go in and out of board meetings. But she turned to me yesterday and said, and after sort of 40 years of a working career and working for many of the large multinationals, she turned around to me and said, I've never been in a room where I felt the passion so strongly and the energy in that room yesterday. We can really do something great here. And that was her view, and it was a credit because most of the people in the room were actually from the ICMIF membership, but we also had a lot of people from our new friends in the civil society and from the shareholder world as well. So collectively we can do things great, and I do believe that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. So we do take note of that report. And I'd like to move on with you on next point of the agenda of JA. It's my report as a chair, but first the accounts. So you were supposed to do that. I was meant to do that. But okay, no problem.
There you go. Yes, the income and expenditure account. It is in the back of your report. That's a brief overview. If anyone would like the full set of accounts, they are audited by these 2 years are audited by KPMG. They gave us a clean bill of health from the audit side. You may remember that we actually had a strategy over these last 2 years where we are investing in the influence side in order to raise the awareness of the mutual sector, and that in turn hopefully will then also get more members coming in as they see the value of what we're trying to offer. So that's been the strategy. The strategy has been to spend some of our reserves. Our reserves are currently sitting about £3 million. So we did have substantial reserves. We are burning through some of those at the moment. But you can see 2015 year, we had an overall loss of 492,000. In 2016, it was a loss of 22,000, helped significantly by some of our investment returns from that 416,000 surplus that we got from a very good investment policy and strategy that we actually have in place, which is helping offset some of those losses. From the board meeting this morning, we recognize that whilst we're budgeted to do this at this stage, this will not continue on past 2019. We are seeing for 2017 already a considerable reduction in the losses. So the strategy we put in place to spend more money, to get the influence, to get the awareness, to create the buzz around the mutual sector has worked. And now we've got this lag of about 1 or 2 years once the new members are coming in. And we've had quite a few new members coming in this year. So it really is starting to work. Maybe it's a year behind where we'd like it to be. But I do think the structured collaboration we've got with Amici will help significantly, and that is bringing another 50 new members in to the global organization, as well as helping Amici with new members joining there. So I think in terms of our finances, it might not look as good a picture, but it is where we thought it would be, and it is moving in the right direction, and we do have finality to it in 2019. And I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any on those, either from the floor or happy to take them outside afterwards or share anything you might want to share in terms of the finances, or any of my team can do that as well. So it's for your information. The board actually is the one that signs off on these. And we're back on track.
And we're back where we wanted to be. It's my pleasure, actually, to talk about the future. We are, as Sean reported on, in the strategy 2015-2018 of ICMIF, and we already started thinking about the next strategy, because it takes time to redefine this kind of things. And I'm just giving you a few insights in this. We've been meeting with more than 20 people beginning of July, ICMIF staff and staff of the regional associations, together with the presidents of the regions. And we got some, well, items we feel as being shared purpose of ICMIF. And it's only the result of brainstorming at this time. We had a discussion in the board this morning as well, and some extra items could come on the table. And of course, at the end, we will need to make choices, which is not done yet. So you can see them on the slide. I just pick out some of them. Address protection gap by providing access to fair protection, for instance, which is a great purpose. But more on our business, maybe. Encourage insurance buying decisions on factors other than pure price. This is immediate business needs. But also help members devise and execute their own strategy. So all kind of topics we're going to work on in the coming year to define the new strategy for ICMIF 2019 to 2022. We also retain some guiding principles on the brand. First, saying we keep the brand ICMIF and we keep it as, be sold as only at ICMIF. We want to be different of other global organizations in this. We will focus on value, meaning focusing on quality of services rather than on quantity of services. one thing we said is maybe we do a little bit too much, or we try to do a little bit too much. I think that's what happens to all enthusiastic organizations and stuff. But at a certain point of time, we need to be able to review that. We will try to understand value, and understand value is make sure that what we put on the table, we deliver on it, and it's service to members, and make sure it's of real value for the members. And some of the services will be of direct value to the members, and other may be of indirect value to the member, just because we do consider it's something we have to do all together, but will not be of direct value to the business of the members in the short term, but will be on the long run. And one guiding principle we had as well is saying we need to listen, to learn, and then lead. And that's why we will listen to all of you on a more broad base before redefining that strategy. It's a kind of co-creating way of doing things. And we also listen to CEOs. You found that new CEO Insight report in your bags, and it was quite optimistic report, actually. That's why we called it an era of renewed confidence. I think one of the things that came out is that CEOs today within the mutual and cooperative insurance sector are convinced, again, that we can make the difference in the future. And, well, just after 32 interviews made by Faye and her team on different themes, I just give you a few insights in this. First of all, some areas in which we could perform better. And it's on digital. Clearly, we're not there. And I think we just had kind of, background to create a burning platform in this. It's on product innovation, certainly, and it's on being agile, not only in IT development, but in our organizations. And I think that's a very important one for the future if we want to make the difference and to be future-proofed. And this conference is all about this. A few reflections we have as a CEO of the insurance companies on profitability, very important one. Regulation, we take it as, being part of the business today. We stop complaining, we just go for it, and we need to be compliant, that's the way it is. And but we still need to make sure we are there for the needed lobby work where needed. Balancing proximity to customer with efficiency through technology, absolutely necessary if we want to be performant in the future, but being more agile at the same time. So needs still a lot of reshuffling of our organizations and systems. Strong governance internally also, and leadership enhanced by networking with and learning from peers. And that's just a very good reflection to ICMIF, because it means that if we do our job well, we are still relevant for members in the future. So this just very, very shortly, and I invite you all to read the report because there is a lot of good input there. And I must say, if you read that as a CEO or leader of your organization, you really recognize yourself and your own challenges in your own organizations. And then the role of the board in all this, well, we ask them to think with us about the future. And don't be surprised if some board members this week will ask you, what do you think? What could ICMIF be for you in improving your business? Because we ask them to do that and to reflect to us afterwards. And you have the board members there. I do hope they are all on picture, or almost all. I think we lost some people getting out of the room, but at least we tried to have them all on the picture. So thank you to the board members for helping us with this in defining the strategy of ICMIF for the future. And if it's, no? Yeah. Moving on this, we would like to start this afternoon with a panel discussion with some of the board members. And actually, it's starting the exercise immediately, because what we want to do with them is reflect on the value of ICMIF in their businesses. And I'm very pleased to invite some colleagues, board members of ICMIF from around the world on stage in this for the first panel discussion of this conference. We'll start with young ladies, and I do invite on stage Georgina Diaz-Sanchez. Georgina is the General Manager of Sociedad de Seguros de Vida del Magisterio Nacional in Costa Rica. And she also chair of the ICMIF Americas organization. I also like to invite Brad Hewitt. He is the CEO of Thrivent Financial in the USA. He was the host of the 2015 ICMIF conference in Minneapolis, and he is also vice chair of the ICMIF board. I also like to invite Chris Black. He is the chief executive of FMG in New Zealand, ICMIF board member and vice chair of the AOA board, so the Asian organization. And also invite Tom Chigotto. He is the CEO of the CIC Insurance Group in Kenya, vice chair of the ICMIF board. And last but not least, Grzegorz Buskowski, who is the CEO of Tufskov in Poland and president of Amice. Please welcome them all on stage. So, dear colleagues, what we want to do in the upcoming 30 minutes, but I think we are running a little bit late, so we will try to do this quite efficiently, is sharing with the audience your views on challenges and opportunities you have in your own businesses, challenges and opportunities we have to rethink the sector, rethink our strategies, reinventing organizations, and redesign insurance. It's a very broad subject. But what we more specifically want to know is actually how, as a cooperative and mutual insurance leader, you use ICMIF to make your business better. I'm interested in your stories, and I'm sure they can give ideas to the audience. So it's also a call to the audience to start to use the app and put questions forward to this panel. And maybe I start with Georgina. Georgina is going to speak in Spanish. Georgina, I think you use the networking of ICMIF in the Americas quite efficiently and try to be really well connected to other members to learn. So maybe you can give us your experiences on this.
En realidad, muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon for inviting me to be on this panel. I represent the Americas here. As I said this morning at the Board of Directors meeting, in the Americas, we are a very diverse region because our regions are all very different. We have different needs. We are made up of very large, quite powerful countries and poorer nations, smaller nations, for instance, islands in the Caribbean. This has allowed us to span quite a broad region from north to south, east to west, and to share very interesting experiences. ICMIF has helped us a great deal, for instance, when it comes to reinsurance business. We have something called the Latin American Reinsurance Group. This has allowed us to buy reinsurance products en masse, in block. Otherwise, well, it would have been very difficult for us. We don't have access to a huge amount of capital. This has allowed us to establish links with other mutual and cooperative insurance businesses, and we have enjoyed their support. So there has been a lot of interaction, a lot of network, which has been very beneficial. My organization in 2020 will celebrate their centenary of uninterrupted activity on the insurance market in our country. And we have managed to become integrated with other insurance businesses, not only in the Americas, but throughout the world. Our insurance companies have grown considerably, and the reinsurance sector in the Americas has increased by almost 300% their market share in very small countries like El Salvador, Costa Rica, Honduras, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Paraguay. So from north to south, south to north, we have managed growth in our business. Thanks to your support. The region of the Americas would like also to thank ICMIF globally for having allowed us to participate in July in the strategic planning meeting. Just by listening, we can make a difference. So thank you very much. We are here to share our views with you and tell you something more about how we have managed to become an integrated whole in the Americas. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgina. So I heard using the network to work together, for instance, on the reinsurance to reinforce your business, but also work together with the global level to learn from each other. So this is really about networking. Tom, if I come to you, I do believe you're even networking all over the world, or is that
yes.
too much of it? No.
Yes, you make it sound rosy. And 2 weeks ago, I took my board to Germany to visit R&V. One of the growth areas we have identified in Kenya is in the area of agri-based insurance, whether it's crop insurance or livestock. So during our visit in Germany, it was very insightful for us and for my board to see what they are doing, their innovation in the area of crop insurance, and also basic things like how they relate with the various stakeholders, whether it's their customers who are also their shareholders. And it was interesting to see, although Germany is a developed country and Kenya is a developing country, there were very many similarities, and we flew back confident that we would be able to apply some of the things we had learned. I also took part of the board to Sweden. I've just come back from Foxham and LF. And again, similarly, we were able to pick up quite a bit of what we can apply, because the insurance penetration in Kenya and in the region as well is quite low. And anything we can do to be the first insurance company, and we have the advantage of being members of ICMIF, to be the first to improve the penetration in the area. Obviously, the fact that we are in different continents, there are some differences. For example, in both Sweden and Germany, pet insurance was quite important and quite big. You can be sure pet insurance will take a long time to take off.
That's a very nice example, and yes, indeed, I cannot say within my company, we exchange in the past a lot with cooperators in Canada, for instance, on a lot of projects and ideas. So yes, it's sometimes close by, but it can also be just exchanging with other members on certain types of topics. Chris, I think you do have quite similar experiences as well in the area of networking and sharing knowledge with other members and within ICMIF.
Yes, we do, and we also have pet insurance in New Zealand as well.
Well, we have to be sheep insurance.
Yes, we have sheep insurance as well. But for those people that aren't familiar with New Zealand, it's a very small country of only 5 million people. It's a very open economy, strongly agricultural based, and it's a long way away. I suppose if we look at the structure of our industry, it's dominated by overseas listed companies. And there are only two mutual companies, ourselves and Medical Assurance, who are here with us this week as well. So for us, while we collaborate and we're cooperative within the insurance industry at home, we don't get the benefit of a mutual view apart from between the two companies I mentioned. And so for us to have the opportunity to link with a big family of insurers around the world is extremely valuable. I think at the heart of it is good people doing good things, as we have in this room. And so we share a common sense of openness, high levels of trust, and also the same philosophy around business, around clients, around society. And that's a very helpful place to start. So for us in New Zealand, being able to come and visit other companies, to attend events like this is extremely valuable. And I think one of the particular benefits about being away out of New Zealand doing that is that there's a lot of groupthink, I think, in terms of a lot of the commentary these days. And we really encourage people to think deeply about the issues and the patterns and the themes, and actually make up your own mind about what you think is going to happen and why. And a good example would be the value chain, where I don't think the value chain is going to change, is my personal view. Fundamentally, I think it's one around manufacturing, it's around origination and distribution, and it's around servicing. And so there's a common view that the value chain with technology will be crunched. And I have the opposite view, where I think will actually just be expanded, and so there'll be more elements in each of those components of the value chain. Now, to be able to visit other ICMIF members to get their perspective around how they make strategic choices about where they play and where they don't play, and why they do that, and how they do that, and how they partner up with organisations is extremely thought-provoking and extremely valuable, and something we couldn't do at home, to be honest. So we get a range of benefits, including one like that.
Okay, sounds good. It sounds to me like, strengthening each other by learning from each other and sharing. Gregos, we had a small conversation going in that sense as well, and strengthening each other and getting more powerful as a mutual and co-op, and making the difference because of learning from each other. Comment a little bit on that as well, from your experience as Dovskov or as ICMIF chair?
I think the ICMIF perspective is more interesting to the audience here. There is an enormous amount of learning that's occurring between ICMIF or between the international organizations, the international structures and the European structures. ICMIF is the European Association of Mutuals. We represent a significant portion of the market. We're a serious player in the insurance market with more than 400 billion euros in premium every year. 30+% of the insurance market in Europe is mutual. In some significant countries, it's close to 50%. And we were able, as a serious player in the market, a representation of serious elements of the market, segment of the market, if you like, to influence the legislative process, the regulatory process in Europe, and to shape the landscape to the benefit of our members, I think, very well. But this is shifting. It's moving to the global stage from European, and we have to watch the European perspective, obviously, because it's our home market, it's our home perspective. But if you look at issues such as the covered agreement recently, where it might just so happen that you couldn't write reinsurance contracts between America and Europe suddenly, and we were able to take care of that through good cooperation with ICMIF, like the accounting standards, the IFRS, whatever.
17.
Yes. Okay. Something that we're working on together very successfully to ensure that it's not an excessive burden to our members here and globally. The IIIS, an excellent forum for the exchange of experience and shaping the legislative field for mutuals and cooperatives worldwide. We exchange the experience. It's not just one way. It's not like we're drawing strength and competence and experience from ICMIF. We're trying to share what we have had. We have been through a significant upheaval in terms of regulation. Solvency II was a major regulation a majorist regulation of the insurance market in years. And we've learned a lot in the process, so we can give as well as receive. But just like in the banking sector, with the Basel structures, yep. The insurance legislation, insurance regulation is becoming global, and the linkage between ICMIF and AMICE and other associations is going to be priceless in that respect.
Thank you, Gregor. Maybe go to a total different area, more on development, leadership development. Brad, maybe you can, because I know you're working a lot within Reinvent on this. So.
Absolutely, and I would just share some of the networking and regulatory influence. But one of the things that I think we've seen for us is, and I really like the practical futurist, is that one of the futurists said, the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. And I like that because to some degree we come, and not just as a CEO, but with our young leaders come and we get our eyes open to other ways of doing business, other insights. And the real value is through the business intelligence group and through the knowledge we can actually start applying that. And for Thrivent, like a lot of organizations, most of our people only work in their market, only work in a fairly small geographic area relative to the whole world. And so part of the value for us in coming to conferences like this and doing other leadership development, whether it's with our young leaders or for me personally, is to think about things differently and to understand approaches that are different than the way I would do it. And I like the way Chris said it, to think deeply about some of these things. And especially as we get ready to have our businesses disrupted by digital and other kinds of things, what we find is that some of the things, like when we visited Kenya, they were already doing things with their cell phones that we hadn't even thought of yet. And so as we meet in different places around the world, we find the value is to be able to think differently.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think a lot of others do also work on, development of young leaders or leaders. As such, when I came in the insurance company, I was working for the bank of the group before, and then coming in the insurance company, my predecessor, Jacques Forêt, that some of you may know, told me within 2 weeks, you're going to Manchester to the ICMIF management course, and when you come back, you know what it is about. And this is really true. I can tell you it's really true. Then you understand what mutual insurance is about. And that was, the first editions, I would say, of the ICMIF management course. It's even much better today. But it's also about sharing experiences, and maybe I'll look at Tom also in the 555 project. It's the way we see the work. It's developing, helping, working together, learn from each other.
Yes, as CIC, we've been doing quite a bit in the microinsurance space in the country. But obviously, as a single organization, there's only so much we can do, yet there is so much that needs to be done. So recently, about a year ago, Kenya being one of the countries where the 555 project is being undertaken, we've seen so much value working with your organization, PNV, as well as Thrivent. And one of the things it does is the benefit is not just to the developing countries, because when your staff come and work with our staff, they are really energetic and passionate, which means we are providing them perhaps with an environment that you would not be able to provide them in your developed countries. So I think it is a quid pro quo. The fact that a country like Kenya can host very successfully the board meetings, as we did in October, giving our members a chance to come and see what the country has to offer. So it's good experience all around, and I'm excited about what we will be able to achieve with the 555 project together.
Okay. Maybe coming back again to the Americas is, well, you said Latin America, South America, a big area, a lot of differences. It's also very different to North America. And I think there as well, you, even if it's very different, you work together on trying to learn from each other. Maybe one of you can comment on that as well. Georgina? Yeah.
Sí, yo creo que
Thank you. I think that the most important thing here in our sector is just to forget whether you're a larger country or smaller country. We can all learn from each other. We should appreciate our differences and learn from one another. Sometimes you have the necessary capacity to design, sometimes you don't. But if you've gone through difficulties, you've learned how to solve them, and you can share those solutions with others in the same continent as you or in other continents. And this is an important added value to our organizations. I think it's something that we have to point out to the young people that are here at this conference. This is not a movement that was created yesterday, really. It's something that has existed for many years now. And we have shared values which we can now share with young people. In the Americas, we have many cooperatives and mutual insurance reinsurers from the U.S. and Canada, too. And we have close links with them. Sometimes it's very difficult to talk to a reinsurance and say, look, you're a cooperative, you're a mutual insurance reinsurer, and request the support. But it's easier now because there's much greater integration thanks to ICMIF's efforts worldwide. It was much more difficult in the past. I remember that our Argentine friends started this entire reinsurance project, and that was the way that we managed to obtain reinsurance in our countries. But without the help of ICMIF, many of our companies would not be present on the markets of the Americas, especially in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is where there are greater investment needs, greater funding needs. And we need to understand that the problems that we are facing are problems which might have been shared by others, so we can learn from others. That allows us to grow much more quickly. It allows us also to talk to others, thanks to the efforts deployed by ICMIF. And it helps us to enhance our visibility worldwide. Differences in language and size and strategy are things that shouldn't place barriers in our path. We need to overcome these differences. I find it quite curious when young people talk about networking. My question is, what have we been doing through the years? We've been doing all this networking for 100 years or more. It's our very reason for being. So we have 50-odd young leaders here. Let's make use of their presence. Show them that we are, as cooperative and mutual insurance federations, are the greatest examples of networking worldwide.
And I would say this is also an invitation to all young leaders in the room to reflect on us and comment on what we're doing and the way we're doing things. So please just tell us what we should do differently in the future. Because even if we don't have millenniums on the board, that's a question that came from the audience. Who in this room does really have millenniums on their board? I'm afraid not that much, but if somebody does, please stand up. But if we don't have them on the board yet, so please use the opportunity of being here and act as if you were on the board of an insurance company. I think that would be interesting. Chris, maybe in Asia as well, very, very different realities from one country to the others. Also, yes. Very high developed countries and developing countries with totally different challenges. Climate is also a big challenge. So how does it work? Are you able to learn from each other, even if the situation is totally different, and work together?
Yes, no, I think you raise a good point there in terms of there's the ICMIF global organisation, and then there are 3 regional organisations. And so it's very helpful to have a strong regional association, and it's much easier to get to as well. So yes, we've had exchanges in Australasia and Asia Pacific on a range of different things, and study tours backwards and forwards. And natural perils are a big issue for us, as it is for others. And so to have regional groups where you can spend a bit more time with people and are more accessible, I think complements the global piece quite well. So yeah, we do that. You know, we have earthquake risk in New Zealand, and you know, Japanese colleagues you know, have the same issue. In the Philippines, the issues are a little bit different, you know, above the ground. So yeah, that's extremely helpful, extremely valuable. And so I think that proximity allows us to probably have, you know, more engagement, and in our experience, you get out what you put in. So I think the regional and the global complement each other very well. And I think the initiative to have more of the forums around the leadership, business intelligence and things like that in the regional areas will make it more accessible for people and colleagues as well.
Okay. I also have a question from the audience about innovation and regulation. We heard from the previous speaker that if we want to innovate, we should talk to the regulator as well. Well, nice. I think all regulating bodies and regulators over the world are talking and thinking about innovation and technology and impact of technology on all kind of levels. But I think reality may be very different from one region to the other. And regulators are not the most agile organizations. I hope we have no regulators in the room. But so how should we handle with this? Yes?
Maybe I'll take that first, and then I'd love to hear from others too. But we've actually gone to our regulators, and I think this is the power of influencing our regulators as they understand the kind of organizations we are. They actually have been more willing to let us innovate because they see that the profit isn't our motivation, it's helping people as a cooperative or a mutual organization. So we've gone to our local regulator with several ideas, trying to test whether they would be even open to it. And they were not just open to it, they were actually encouraging us to do it, because we do think these can solve some of the big problems. We heard from both of our speakers, technology and some of the global issues we have. Because we're trying to help people as our primary motivation, they seem to be more willing to actually listen to what we have to say. Now, it doesn't get us out of some of the financial regulations and the accounting and all the other things, but we're not trying to deal with that anyway. So we've actually found that influence strategy, both at a global and at a very local level, is a way to actually innovate.
Okay, that's a good experience. Yes, Gregor?
Yes, the interesting thing is that from my experience, we didn't have to talk to regulators about innovation, because nothing in the sector so far has been innovation or disruption to the extent that would require regulators to act or to allow us to act.
Okay.
The fintech industry is talking to the European Commission, for example, about what they call regulatory sandboxes, or limited undertakings where they allow you to play with things on a small scale so you don't break too much. But the insurance industry hasn't done that yet because we haven't done much of it yet, much of the disruption. The little movie we've seen, the trough, that's not disruption. That's smooth consumer experience provided by AXA. Lemonade is either Munich Re or Allianz. It's just a different, it's a tiger with different stripes. We haven't seen anything in the insurance industry so far, at least I haven't seen anything, and I think I've seen much, that would warrant a serious discussion with the regulators about loosening the regulations or changing the regulations to allow for disruption to be a part of our model. There's one thing coming though, and that's the data ownership. That's disruption, destructive disruption that's coming, because the issue of data ownership will impact motor industry, at least in Europe, like nothing else. And that's something we will be sharing globally, I think, with the insurance industry on other continents. Because if it turns out in the end that it's the car producers that own the car data, the driving data, they don't need us very much anymore. And motor industry is, what, 60% of the market?
Or the health companies, or the consumer owning.
That's data again. Exactly. It's either health companies or the consumer or the person that owns the data. That is going to be big in the coming years, and it's going to be a huge issue very quickly. And it's something that we will have to take care of. We'll have to work with the regulators on and support the position that benefits the industry most, and work with ICMIF, with other organizations on a global scale, because it's a global issue, and the cute apps will work fine, but that's not the disruption. The disruption is coming from a completely different angle. And the worst fear is that there's disruption from another angle that none of us sees. That's the worst. But that's something that we'll have to focus on in the near future.
Okay, interesting. I start to have questions from the audience through the app, so I got a lot of them there, so it's a little bit difficult to follow. Maybe a first one here, and I don't know who wants to take it. Would digital forums facilitate the ICMIF support to the sharing and communication between member companies? So it's more kind of suggestions. Digital forums, is that a good way of sharing with each other, or?
Why don't you carry on? You carry on and answer this question.
Does one of you already use digital forums to exchange with others within the company, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you use Facebook. You can use any other digital forum. Yeah.
Okay. So I think just for us, we've had a couple of colleagues with a generous reception in Singapore, Copenhagen, and also across in Canada and NFU up the road. And so that's meeting with like-minded people in those organisations, one organisation at a time. And it's an interesting idea, actually, having a group of people come together and have a discussion like that. But there is, I think, good collaboration and conversation and exchanging of ideas going on already in digital and other things as well.
So one of the things that I would say, I think digital can enhance. I don't think it can just completely replace. And so I use Slack for one group I'm part of. But we have lots of conversations using that digital media, but there's a period of time where we actually need to build the relationship, and there's a digital relationship and then there's a personal relationship. And I think both are valuable. So my observation is digital needs to be part of the way to enhance. It's like the value chain. It's not going to replace it. It's going to make it much better. And so I think we do need to have more of those forums, but I don't think it can replace the person-to-person networking.
It also sounds like an area where the millennials can be of use to all of us. So maybe we could throw them at it. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good one. Another question. I'm sorry.
So I was just going to add to that. I think it's interesting looking at the two examples of Lemonade and Trove. They are transactional models, and so if you look at digital, it's very interesting how the banks have done it. we all use internet banking for transactional banking. And I think the banks have traditionally would back themselves on relationship models. But I think a lot of the banking industry has moved away from a relationship model now with internet banking, and they've lost the art of relationship management. And I think it's a challenge and an opportunity for us. So I do agree about weaving it in, as another channel. It's a bit like if we were sitting here in the 1940s, the big disruption would have been the telephone. But we've managed to get through that. And I think, we'll add on digital, but I think how we position that in a relationship model, which will be common to many in the room, I think, would be a very interesting topic to explore and understand.
Okay, yes, Georgina?
A mí me parece que tienen que coexistir.
I think that they should coexist. I don't think we can replace digital relations and interpersonal relations. We need direct contact as human beings. I don't think one should replace the other, and one type of relationship should not be more important than another. Both are necessary.
Okay, I think we all seem to agree on that. I have a lot of other questions. We won't be able to tackle them all. I'm very sorry. Maybe another one on developing young leaders again is question is how do you interact and identify young leaders in your organizations? I think that's an important one as well if we want to think about our successors and preparing the future.
One of the things I noticed when I visited Germany is that most of the people there are old. The reason I say
we have a few young Germans in the room, so definitely.
Yeah. Most. And the reason I say this is that Kenya and most of the African countries have a young population where between 60 and 70% of the whole population is probably below 35 years. So for us, like in my organization, most of the employees are young. So we have no option, if you like, but to deal with them. And I don't know, the best training that we can go for, because I try and use the kids in my house as an example of how to deal with them in the office, but it doesn't always work. What I'm trying to say is it is important for any organization that wants to exist in the future to have a strategy for how to engage the youth, whether as employees or as future customers.
Okay, well, very good. Any other comment on this?
Just maybe one, identifying them as I think each of our organizations has ways we identify, upcoming talent. My experience, though, from both my own personal experience and even with our organization, is giving people not just a training seminar, but an experience at something like coming to a conference and interacting or giving a project or doing something like that is the best way to develop not just some sort of learning agenda, but some experience agenda too.
Okay, maybe just a small comment on PNV, and it's not really on development programs or training programs or so, but something we are actually very proud of is that we do have a kind of young leaders organization within PNV. And it just started like this. They call themselves Boost. Today they changed name over time. So they call themselves Boost, and they're just doing projects. They have skills, and they offer those skills to non-profit organizations outside PNV. They just party together. They just discuss together, and it's just so great. And I remember when it started, I asked one of those young guys to come to my office and to explain to me what they were doing. And they were very scared because they thought, she is going to say, we need a governance, we need this, we need this, we need a report. And I was just the opposite, say, please do, and ask if you need something. So it was completely the opposite. And we see it's really, really very great. They do a lot of beautiful things. So it's also about let it go and let them do it. Also, a startup, you can't set up a startup within a big company if you don't give freedom to young people to do what they want, what they need to do and what they want to do another way. So maybe just an example. For the sake of time, we will need to close that discussion. I'm very sorry because we could go on for a certain time, but I'm quite sure you can go on discussing all those topics with our panel here in the coming days. So please join me to thank that panel. Thank you very much. You can stay there. I'm first. Yeah. And before I hand over to Sean, we still have to close General Assembly, but you always forget about this kind of formal things. So it's, I do need to ask you if there is any other business for General Assembly. I do have one, and the one is announcing the conference for 2019. We approved that in the board this afternoon, and therefore I will ask Chris to address us a few words.
Thanks very much, Hilda. Yeah, so as you see on the program there, we have the privilege of hosting the 2019 ICMIF conference in Auckland in New Zealand, and on behalf of the 7 of us that are here from New Zealand, we would welcome you with open arms. If you've been to New Zealand before, that's great. We look forward to seeing you back again. And if you haven't been to New Zealand before, we'd encourage you to come down. For those young leaders in the room, it's only a 23 or 33-hour flight, so with your stamina, that'll be easy. And I'm very respectful of old leaders in the room as well, or older leaders, and would welcome you there as well. I think these biennial conferences, to be able to get away from your business and to connect with friends and have the fellowship and the relationships and develop new ones and build existing ones is extremely valuable, as well as sharing and talking through the challenges and opportunities we have. And we'd hope to put on a good show with Sean and your team, which are fabulous at putting these things on as well. So we hope you can come, and we'd like to just give you a little taste of what you might see when you do come down. Because it is a long way, we respect that. You could come for the week, or you could come for 2 weeks, or if you are good at delegating, maybe even 3 weeks if you'd like to. So we look forward to seeing you there, even though we haven't started the 2017 conference yet.
This look fabulous, and I would say it's at least 2 weeks to go there. So thank you very much, Chris, and thank you very much, FMG, to host us in 2019. I will now close the General Assembly 2017 and give the floor back to Sean for some more practical announcements, I think.